perché normalmente distruggo tutto, quindi speriamo di no. Buon pomeriggio a tutte e tutti, grazie per esserci. Vi do subito una comunicazione di servizio. Questo panel, questa conversazione sarà in lingua inglese, però è possibile seguire una traduzione simultanea nel sito che adesso vi dirò, valmaradio.com/webradio, così andate direttamente nella pagina, quindi basta avere telefono e auricolari e potete seguire tranquillamente. Again, even in my broken English, as you understand, is not the beginning of the talk, just some technical info. Welcome everyone who is here in the flesh, challenging the hot of this afternoon, and also online, because we are connected and streamed online, just to give some intimidating vibe to the nice guests that we have. I'm Chiara Organtini. I work at Santarcangelo Festival, and I'm coordinating the Be Part project, which is a European project. It's a Creative Europe large-scale cooperation project. And I will tell you a few things about it just after, to give a frame of this talk. The title that you read in the booklet, it's Be Part, which is a very open, statement. So maybe it's good to understand which is the angle through which we are looking at this topic during this project that we do together. Participation is such a wide, topic, and it's very ambitious even to dare to talk about it. But what is interesting in this process that we are facing since almost 3 years now, is not just to look at participation within artistic practices and cultural field, but also as a topic that can invest political scenarios and also societal transformation. The thing we are really looking for is to understand how participatory practices can be playground to learn and to work together differently. So to connect these artistic and aesthetic experiments with, let's say, organizational impact and structural change. In this sense, I think it's very relevant to stay with the naming and the words, and why this project is called Be Part and not Take Part, for instance, because it's a slightly different theme. It's a yellow line, but it's quite substantial. The idea is not to take part in something that it's already there and it's designed by someone else, and maybe it's inclusive as we want to think, but it's really a white space that is co-design and co-shape with those who join. So it's a space for belonging, for developing together different ways of arranging even decision making, redistribution of resources, power. And not by chance, in the B part, we have 4 thematic pillars that we look at. One is power, and it is about how we distribute and reconsider the relationship and hierarchical roles within participation. The politics, because of course this is a way of doing politics. It is a governance line that we also try to practice in our organization. And then there is the theme of public, not because we work with the public, but because public is intended as a common, so something that can be shared and be developed and construct together with those who join. And finally, place, because of course we try to work with context, with territories, but also enabling and inventing heterotopia, so fake space that inhabits space, temporary, but can prototype other ways of being together in a kind of agora where actually meetings can happen. Having said that, I will just say who is in this panel with me, so we can dive deep into the B part actions and learnings. So the idea is to offer our experience in a very humble way, also the failure and the difficulties, to start talking for real about participation. Sophie Hope, she's a researcher and a professor, practice-based, and she's developing an evaluation of the project. Not saying this is good or not, but helping to map exactly the symmetries in our relationship, also with very creative and stimulating tools. Goan is artistic director of Arts Admin and is one of the partners in this project. Anna Karasińska, she's performing tonight. She's an artist and she's involved in this year Santarcangelo's artistic investigation. Sarah Hirn from Finland. She's a curator and creative producer from Urb Festival, again, one of the partner, and Berger from Riga, Latvia, a Homo Novus Festival. So all these fantastic female group of people are developing and trying to investigate this theme. A few more things about the B part. So we will name things that are clear for everyone, how this main topic, this research is questioned. So the B part is a 3-year trajectory. We even stumbled into the COVID. We faced a lot of departure in the B part, which make it a bit specific and a lot of space to change what was written in the original application. And it involves, besides this organization, 10 structures all over Europe and North Africa. Santarcangelo is the leading partner, so he's the coordinator of the project. Then we have, starting from the other side, there is a Scottish Scapular Workshop from Lumsden, that is a rural area in Scotland. Arsadmin, that is here. Cork Midsummer Festival in Ireland, they're also here, and maybe they will also take the lead after a while. And then we go down Italy and Slovenia, City of Women, they're here present. From the Central Europe, there is Furuit from Ghent, from Flanders. Chiasma, it's an Urb festival from Finland is mentioned, Festival de Marseille from France, and finally L'Artrou from Tunisia. So we also explore a wide geographical span. This question we try to investigate through a structure of actions, some of which are more located in our territories and others are common action. We try to look at artistic practices and how participation can be prototyped through these processes with some project that we call field works. So the reason why it's not production, but it's field work, it's because we try to ally with some artists and have a trajectory to learn how to differently work together, engaging people, communities in territories, but also creating communities by working with them. And these core people, we call them co-creators because it's actually not participant, but people that join the trajectory and that can impact profoundly what we do. Then we do have common action. One is the public program. It's a space to exchange what happened in the specific field works. So it's a common space to merge our learnings and exchange also between the artists and, you know, the knowledge we slowly produce by being together. And then public big events for the entire process of the 3 years that we name assemblies. And I like the fact that it evokes a space for multiplicity. So it's spaces where through creative formats, but also discursive formats, we engage general public, policymakers as well, and professionals. And then, of course, we have an internal meeting, and a very specific piece of the project is the critical network. That is a group of artists that we engage to accompany in this journey, the organization, since, as we mentioned, the structural impact is really crucial, and to see what we can learn and how we can work differently. And this group of people, this group of artists will follow the entire trajectory, looking at how participation is ethically or not put in place in our experimentation, but also looking at how the relationship of the consortium and the partner has developed. So is it really participatory? Where are the friction, the blockages, and how we can unlock or not, or confront each other? And what is interesting is that, as in many European projects, the original ambition was to finalize this collaboration with a list of recommendations for politicians regarding participation. But it was clear since the beginning that this is not possible because there is no formula. We can learn, we can develop soft skills and attitude, but we don't have a receipt. So they opened this research to many more artists, creating a board of minds and ideas to accompany this group of people, developing a sort of protocol, which is not, again, a set of rules, but it's just tasks, exercises, and invitation to negotiate one another how participation wants to be practiced in specific context. And I like the fact that they stress a lot that now the entire network is the critical network, because we're looking at criticalities in a different way, not as a preaching attitude, but as a way to reevaluate, reflect, and reconsider what we do day by day. So even criticality, it is a practice, it is an open practice, and it's deeply embedded in participation. And now I will just stop because I took too much space already. And I just wanted to maybe dive deep into the B part and this topic that we are trying to face. Starting from a very situated moment. So I don't like to be too much generic. I like to be specific and also to connect with real bodily experience. This is something that also Sophie is stressing a lot in the evaluation, and I think it's very valuable. So what I wanted to invite you to share in a very open way is to reflect at the fieldwork, one of the fieldwork you developed, and think about a specific, even a specific line, which is the hardest question you have been asked during the fieldwork, and that you have to respond eventually to with an action or with a decision. Or we start by talking about challenges, maybe. And if you don't mind, I would maybe invite Anna to start, because she's in the middle of it and it can be very open and therapeutic to share it with us. And
So I started to think, if I understand well the word fieldwork in this. So the question was, what was the most difficult question I've been asked during the
field,
process?
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was not the question, but maybe some introduction is needed also of what I did. So basically, I prepared work here for a Santarcangelo festival as a part of Be Part project that invites people from local community to be part. And the silent actor of this project is a space where we were creating, which is post-industrial, which is like old factory that is now devastated, but it's been working until 10 years ago. And it's very important place for a local community. And my personal conviction was that I wanted also to invite people who were immigrants, since I identify myself very much in my work as also being this temporary immigrant, since I work a lot abroad, and also my life was like this, that many important events happened when I didn't have access to my basic resources in a place where I lived. So I think the most difficult thing was this part of working with immigrants was this silent assumption that as an artist wanting to invite immigrants to work with me for a performance, I am kind of a danger for them. That I would probably use them, exploit them in a way, of course, in a soft way, but that is maybe threatening them in some way. So that was the most difficult thing, that you start from a position of justifying yourself and explaining yourself and being corrected by everyone. And this is really kind of against artistic process, where you kind of have to believe your intuition and not always have it already very clearly explained on the reason level, but it's like this movement of your heart that you follow. And at this point, really to answer the list of a very elaborated question from the person who was supposed to give you a contact to a person, and this is a good intention to ask these questions, but I was not able. And behind these questions, this assumption that these are vulnerable people, and I am probably not aware of that.
So if I also try to hear what you're saying, there is a silent request for care, and reading in between lines of a specific vulnerability that also come with a specific political situation and condition that we are not always aware of. So I think it's really shifting how you as an artist also approach the level of, how can I say, ownership of the outcome and the process, because actually it's very connected with a lot of hidden needs and question or invisibilized situation. Yeah, thank you. Big one. Do you want to go next?
You go next.
With the translation. Chiara, how is that translation? Are we supposed to like take breaks or? No, she's fine. Oh, okay. She's simultaneous.
Hi, I'm Berger from Home Novus Festival, and I was just thinking now what's been the toughest question, and I think artistically there's been lots of tough questions, but if I think about the one that really resonates from our participants, our co-authors, our co-creators, is this it? Is that all? We have a wonderful project called Gucci Fabrica, which works with Cote, Bria, Jana Jose, who's a Chilean artist based in Berlin, working with 3 local seamstresses, Clinta, Anta, and Marta, to reformulate and revalue this market bag, this typical market bag, this blue, red, white striped square bag. Everyone has one at home. I think this is a universal bag that people carry with them. It is made out of plastic. In Australia, we call them Vietnamese bags. In Latvia, they are often referred to as Russian bags or Polish bags. I found out from Finland they're referred to as Yugoslavian bags. So they're often referred to in this very racist way. But the project was to revalue them and to completely change this material and make it Gucci, but spelt in the Latvian way, which is a G-U-C-H-N-E. So we don't break any copyright. But we had such a joyful experience, I think, in creating this field work, which happened in situ in the festival, so high pressure 10 days. And I think after that 10 days, it was like, okay, but what next? Like, what now? How can we keep this energy? How can we keep this space of, I mean, it was just pure magic, actually. Like if I, just even as a participant, I got so much joy from this project. And I think that was the toughest question for me, because it was like, wow, I don't want to let this go. And I can see the audience doesn't want to let this go. And the participants don't want to let this go. But how do you maintain that? And how do you, what is the safety that we have to consider in creating new communities, in creating these heterotopias? What is then the risk of destroying them also?
So if I connect with that, I think there is let's say a question of legacy as well, because we try to trigger things in communities by these practices, and then what's left, who is taking care of that? So what does it take for an organization as well, not just to attract but to maintain? This morning we spoke about the difficulty of also in a sustainable way keep on working with the same artist in order to dive deep in a process, and it's not easy because the first date is like very fire and flame, but then you have to keep on coming back, and maybe failure is involved when you practice and maintain a relationship. So I think that's the same for territories and for artists, but it's a huge question that to be put on the table, I think.
Yes, I can continue. So greetings from Helsinki. So I'm Sara from Urb Festival, which is an urban arts festival in Helsinki, produced by Kiasma Theatre. And I will talk about this exhibition we had this spring, which was called Kairos, and it was curated by a Kairos Collective, which was originally Alexandra Mitiku, a young artist who then invited 3 other artists to curate with her, who then they invited 14 other artists to be part of it. So it ended up being 18 artists doing workshops, panel discussions, visual art, performances in a gallery space. And I was thinking about this question. Chiara sent us an email saying that think about these things within this panel discussion, and I couldn't really come up with with anything that would be so spectacular that I would want to share, because I felt that most of them are quite practical, and I don't know if it's about the culture in the way that we work, that it's quite work oriented in a way, but a question that I did get from one of the performers from in this particular on the first day that they arrived to the space, and they met me and said that, so why are you in charge of this, was the first question for me. And I couldn't really reply. I didn't know how to reply, because I don't exactly, have a direct answer to that. But yeah, it wasn't in the actual process of doing things, but it's still, I think, a question that why are these seats shared in a way, or why are people hired in a way, or why did I end up where I am at this point? And it's a sequence of coincidences and work and things, and I don't know if I'm the right person to do this, but yeah, I think this is it.
I understand how difficult that question might be in that moment, especially. And I think there is even behind eventually something that it's about questioning the givens, things that we give for granted, we don't look at anymore because it's in front of us, or maybe choices that we did several years before, but actually to engage in processes that multiply people, multiply perspective, require a lot of commitment, and to ask yourself why it's the first. But also, again, you mentioned even the practicalities, why the seats are arranged in a specific way, why is this the posture that we adopt. And I think to question what is in front of us since many years and we give for granted, it is a big shift and a big learning. And I also feel the tension of saying I'm not sure I'm the right person here. So yeah, beautiful.
Hi, my name is Roise Goan, and I work at Arts Admin in London. And I think my first response is to go from the sublime to the ridiculous with a difficult question I was asked, which was, why can't we order our own lunch instead of the lunch that you've decided we would like? And this was an indicative response of it came from one of our Arts Admin youth cohort who we've been working with over the past year. And I think when this question came, it was kind of indicative of lots of other questions that perhaps weren't being asked. And I think what we have found through this project is really that the idea of creating a program for like creating a trajectory in which we assumed that power gets gradually shared and decision making gets gradually fostered is a difficult thing to engineer, and requires a kind of a collective energy that maybe often isn't present within particular cohorts of people. And I think within the cohort that we were talking about, it was young people in East London. And and I think our discovery really, which has been very challenging here, is that behind this kind of I would like to own my own, or I would like to order my own lunch and it mightn't be the same lunch as you question, is actually perhaps the absence of bigger questions around where the project is going, and where this sense of kind of agency, where we think like agency and power actually lie. Because I think you can only, my feeling would be that you can kind of only question the thing that's in front of you, and that actually the journey of collaboration is longer than maybe we had assumed it might be, and that actually, in thinking that we were creating loads of space for sharing power, we had completely failed. So that would be, I suppose, my difficult question.
Well, I think it's the perfect question to dive deep. No, because it's really from the very practical side, you realize things that we completely misled and misunderstood, and it's because we are trapped or just familiar with this way of working that doesn't give space, even when we think that it is happening to other agency, as you said. And I wanted maybe to now turn more optimistically into the positive part and start recapping a bit what we have. So we have a question of care, a question of thinking about what's next, the legacy, and how do we maintain and take care of what we seed, the givens. So how do we question what is in front, what we are used to do and why in these processes, and this idea of trying to dismantle since the very beginning how the governance is shared. And eventually we discovered just by doing the field work as it was happened. So even if we plan in a specific way, it was not, I would not say genuine, but effective enough at that point. But for sure, some positive part will happen and has happened during the fieldwork. So maybe I propose you another round, which is looking at the most positive part, maybe also connected as a response to this theme that we are mentioning here. So the care, the legacy, the whys and the givens, and the agency. So if you can recall a positive moment where you felt, okay, this is working, this is actually happening, and even explore the situation and the emotional impact, the physical, attitudes and features of that moment. This should be like the nice part, guys. So.
Do you want me to go straight away?
If you have it.
I think the opposite of this experience for us has been actually the response to, like, the thinking about the response to this around within our organization, because we produce artist projects and we run a building in East London, but we're not really a venue. Like, really, we often make things that go very far away, but we're interested in how we can be more connected to the community around us and the building around us. And I think the the flip side of this kind of arrogant attitude that we took to our youth program and an imagined trajectory for engagement with young people through that has been the other work we were doing alongside that, which is around, we have, as an organization, a really long history of supporting early career producers through training opportunities. And after COVID, there was a sense of, like, real urgency around opportunities for young people, school leavers or people who had been in university, and that the sense of, like, how to support career entry into the arts. And actually the thing that has unlocked for us in a way is that this thing that we had wanted to do, which was empower young people to potentially have careers in the arts or to become decision makers in the arts, was actually already happening. And this is the difficult question, because when we talk about the ethics of participation, or the sense of where power lies, a consistent question that has come up for us in the broad network is around who gets paid and who doesn't, and why. And I think something that has been really interesting for us to frame is that where we have had really successful collaborative B partnerships happening with young people within our organization has been when we have paid people and, like, actually created employment opportunities. And that actually maybe the future for our youth program is not in thinking that we create a space for the kind of traditional thing we would have taught before, which is I do a workshop and then the opportunity will grow and a relationship will develop over time, but actually being really clear from the get-go around, if we value somebody's time and energy and we're interested in them developing power and agency within our organization, that requires us to pay them.
Talking about legacy, I think it was that thing of like listening to our participants and going, well, fine, let's just do it again. Like, you know, what is this idea that even if a project is successful, you can't go further? And I think that maybe these are assumptions that working within festivals, that if you have a project that's worked really well, that can be put to bed. That was tick, finished. But actually we decided, well, no, fuck it, let's just go and let's do it again. Let's actually go deeper into this project and invite this group of people to work over 3 years. So this ambition of 10 days can turn into 1,000 days. And what happens if you really provide that time and that energy and that love and that effort? And almost immediately after kind of making that decision to go, let's go further and deeper, the mythology of this collection of people, this collaboration, kept getting deeper in itself. Not only was this like a temporary fabrica, a temporary factory, a temporary art moment in a festival, it turned into an identity of being a now I'm forgetting the word, like an atelier. They are what is this French word for someone that makes fancy dresses? Yeah, but that they then identified that they are from Gucci Fabrica, no, that they are no longer participants in a project, in a festival, but they are of Gucci Fabrica. And we had a wonderful opportunity to travel together as a collective to Ghent for one of the artist assemblies. And I mean, that energy, the feeling, also there were some others here, that it was just so wonderful to kind of go, wow, this thing, what is next? Okay, let's just keep going and let's see how far it can go. And now that there is also this timeline that's expanded drastically, even within the collective, they're like, okay, I think we're going to do a gallery show. We've already made a website. We've got business cards. And like, it just keeps growing without any of our participation, actually. And it's really, yeah, then it's this, also the collaboration with the festival becomes less relevant because the body is existing, the collective is existing on its own. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll continue. So I can like join, kind of jump onto the same train that I think like individually a comment or something that I have received is from the young artists. So basically our target group has been chosen to be young artists who somehow don't find their way to the structures of arts communities or arts institutions, or feel that they are left out and their talent is not being appreciated or somehow valued in this system of the Finnish arts world, type of a thing. So they, all of them have some experience within the arts scene or like with some specific practice of an art form, even though they're not professionally working on it. But so then to have a comment that they say that this is the first time that I've ever been appreciated and treated as an equal, or been in a safe space in the way that I can be myself and not try to be like more educated or more something else than I think that people expect me to be. So I think that's quite nice. But then as well, I think it's important to try these ways of then when you get that, then what's next, so that this would continue. And outside of the festival, we have also tried to recreate new opportunities for performances or for exhibitions or things that people have created within the BPOP project, which is sometimes works out better and sometimes not so great, but still I think that's definitely in the long term the best outcome that I can think of, that people find work and start to find their ways, like kind of negotiating and navigating through the arts world or the system, that how to get funded, and we help people to do applications for funding and things. So then hopefully with time, even though if the actual project would be over, that some of the people will find their way within this the professional scene in the arts in Finland.
So I should maybe say about something that is not my merit, basically, but rather Tomek, who is director of the festival and whose idea somehow it was to enter the space of the factory, and also that to get connected with the local community in some way. And I hope this can be like a step for this frazione and these communities that are not here in the center of Santarcangelo, to feel like they are invited to take part in this event. And so that is one thing. The other thing is that it's somehow, this is a space that is under there's a big question mark what will happen with this space. And obviously who has money to invest is people who are interested in a business. So but the local community is fighting to get it back for people, but obviously there's discussion about it. So I think this was also a kind of not direct voice in this discussion, like coming back there, because what local community says about reclaiming this space would be because they had the place to meet before, and the whole city, like little village, was built around, and the whole community appeared, and they had this space to meet, and now this space is needed for the same goal. So the whole life was organized around the space that is now dead and silent. And I think this, even if these people will not come, but they know something happens there, is already a big thing. And I have to say that I think that Tomek had this great intuition to go there. Also I hope that this mix that happened, because we invited, let's say, I will maybe not do a spoiler, but the group of people is coming from a very different backgrounds, and I think that maybe this, it can be kind of I don't know, like this is unexpected. And what happens is like that this meeting is also unexpected, but then we feel the freedom of this space, because this space is not belonging, I mean, it belongs to someone, but it's not in any function now. So it's like this space, we are meeting nowhere, and it's like this meeting in a train with a stranger that you can say what you want because you will never meet this person again. So in this space is a little bit of this feeling, like there's a bit more freedom, because it has this vibe of being outsider space. So I hope this will somehow develop. I hope for people here that it will develop.
And if this happen, I think is the biggest, let's say, we do another talk about the success, and this is exactly the core. I mean, it's it's a fantastic seed. So to come back to what we have from the stories of, also the sparkles and the positive sides, there is this idea of seeing and valuing people that we engage also through money and to power and authority in doing what they need to do and to express. But this topic of money, I think, is very relevant, and it's one of the points that during the B-Part project we really stressed. So to stop doing participation on a voluntary basis and try to acknowledge and reward the time, the quality of people and the energy that they bring, which is a reminder we should also bring to the sustainability of our own work as institutions, because this is also connected with a time issue that we have been speaking a lot in these days. The ambition to work together again. So to coming back to the story that Bach mentioned, this idea, to abandon a model of producing that is based on one shot and then we leave, because actually there is a legacy to be maintained and to be continued. This idea of providing opportunities and on also equity, to embrace and engage also diverse people and provide spaces for growth. And I really like this idea that you share, Anna, about offering the chance to voice some needs and to raise voices in a way that can also impact the future of spaces, and to use the freedom of these lateral spaces that the arts can create, actually to provide prototypes and suggestion for a real political change. And coming now maybe to the quick and final one, I wanted to take, looking at the value we mentioned before, these specific keys that emerge from the positive part. What does it take for an organization or for an artist? What does it take to make this happen? What do we have to let go, for instance, of the methods and the attitude that we have in our work? Or what do we need to gain? So what does it take for us? But it's also a speculative question, because we are not there yet, but we can map some trajectories that hopefully it's like a reminder for us. And it can be also very simple and very pragmatic. Pragmatic is very good.
I can start. Going back to this spring's the exhibition part with the Kairos, I think the thing that where we failed, which goes well with this, is basically time, and also to have somebody there kind of all the time. So it's about resources in a way. That's that when there were so many of the young artists and they were kind of all doing partly their own things and partly together, and we tried to be clear with the leading curators of what's this about, but then maybe the communication kind of got a bit lost on the way within this group of young artists who were then 18 in the end. So then I think we would have, as an organization, have to figure out to have somebody to have the time to be there kind of with their ears and eyes. So when there's any opportunities for conflict or any kind of misunderstanding, that we would have the resource for to be there from the institution side to help in these situations, so that it doesn't become a problem within the group, but there's like a kind of like a neutral and there wasn't any big arguments or anything like this, but there was still opportunities for things to grow into that direction. So I think time is one of the biggest things, and obviously then trust. If you don't trust for the artist or the people that you hand all the power that you have and money and finances, then why would you do it?
Pleasure, joy, and silliness, and leaning into this. I think learning from Guti Fabrica is that actually in a ridiculous mythology you can talk about the real things much easier, and to really embrace play, also from an organizational perspective. So yes, the model of the work plays with the audience around trade and buying, and it's a playful situation, but they did the same thing with us also as the organization, as the activation. So would you trade a day off for this bag? Yes, I really want the bag. You can have a day off. Like that, embracing actually this joy and pleasure of the play. And I think that's an obvious one, which is very playful, but I think that same game or play, and joy in that play goes for all of the Be Part projects that we're doing. So embracing that, whatever level of play that is, and subscribing to that mythology equally as an organization as those co-curators. So not feeling like that as the organization or the curatorial structure that we should be in a different relationship to that mythology of working, or that heterotopia, that we are not a part, that we are not a separate entity, but we are also part of that landscape.
So for me, it was like I had to just somehow agree to not to feel an author to share this position, and it's complicated because it's like I try to share my experience and to take responsibility so people feel safe, but at the same time, basically, it's like let's say 4 stories in a work, and one fictional character. So this fictional character is the only thing that I have written and directed, and with the rest of people, they say what they wanted, but I helped them to shape this and to get to the point that they could understand what they want and direct in some cases, or not direct in other, but and also like to create the whole thing. So it's like kind of difficult to I maybe not during the work is not difficult. It's difficult when you have to show it, and knowing that somehow there is this it's not so because maybe someone reads in the leaflet that it's like this, so I'm kind of sharing this, that I'm not the author, but it's a very strange feeling, like I'm kind of signing in a way something that is not that I'm not fully identifying myself with. In some way, yes, but in some way not. So it's kind of challenging, I would say. But at the same time, there's also bright side of this, that is this pride and satisfaction if we can find, like, learn from, like, something from each other, or if it goes well, or it's, I don't know, it's like this these feelings of exchange, and also, like, I don't know, it's nice to give up on yourself, like to little bit, like, be less important while doing art. It's nice feeling as well. So I'm like, okay, it's gonna be like this, okay. So it's like, it's nice because it's I don't know, like, gives you this like new perspective on what you really want, I would say, and also some kind of collective feeling that I like in this case.
Thank you. I was thinking that I would say in response, common purpose, a sense of like common purpose, but actually I don't know that we often need a common purpose to like make projects together. That like we can have, maybe it's more like a common drive rather than a common purpose. That there's some sort of like energy, motivating energy, even if it's not coming from the same desired outcome. And yeah, I'm from Ireland, not from the UK, and my first language is Irish, and we have a word in Irish called mehel, and mehel is about a collective work, but it's not just about the work; it's about the energy you bring towards the work, and so yeah, I think that.
I think it's a very beautiful image and reminds me to the pleasure the Beck was telling about, because maybe that's already the drive and the willing to feel it again, or to nourish and to feed that status. So we have an entire protocol for the EU. We have the recommendation for, to make what is at stake and what it takes. Of course, we need time. That's for sure something to be considered, but also intermediary bodies or mediation when accompanying these kind of processes, and that can also manage and facilitate conflicts, and also that engaged organization. We often demand to the artists the role to take in charge of communities, to deliver beautiful project, while unless it is seated in the organization that stays in the territory, it's not going to work, and we have to commit to that. But the key to commit is actually to find pleasure and to have a posture that can, challenge also this idea of direction as top-down, very responsibilized and strict way of behaving, and rather seeing the direction as a trajectory that we can embrace together in many ways. Optimistically, we're going to deliver this to the EU for the next application, and it's going to be a huge success, and COVID won't happen, and we will be happy together. But I will just ask Sophie, and I will rely on your knowledge and capacity to read. If you can share eventually some connection that this is sparkling in you, in what you are also collecting from the B part interviews and evaluation, and from your past, because you can share a lot on how to reflect and practice and readjust this trajectory that we are embracing.
Sorry. Hello. Thank you so much for sharing. We were talking earlier about how hard it is to share problems and difficulties in public, and it's a very, very generous thing to do. I'd also like to thank Henry in the audience as well, who I'm working with on the evaluation. And we've also been working with what we're calling field note diarists. Paola is here, I think. There she is by the tree. And we're working with field note diarists in each of the 10 locations who are the kind of participant observers of these very complex, embedded, knotty projects. So big thanks to all of them as well. And also to the critical network who aren't officially sort of represented here, I don't think, this week, but they are really also very important voices in the process of B-Part. I'm just going to read out some notes to start with, and then I hope we can open up to questions, and I can also, and reflections, and I can say a bit more about our approach to evaluation as research and as practice-based research. But some of the questions that I noted that maybe other questions came up, and some of these are direct quotes, and some of other things that have come up for us this morning, or made me think about. Am I a danger or a threat? Why are you in charge of this? Is this it? Why am I bothered by this? Do I feel like I've been invited? Why can't we order our own lunch? Why have I got the microphone? To what extent is governance shared? Is this all talk? What's an arrogant attitude? How can we keep doing this again? How can we move beyond binaries? That came up a lot today. I was also thinking about the possibility and the time and the resources that are needed to do deep dives and do this kind of really getting to know each other and sharing practices and ways of working. And that the deep dives also, by doing deep diving, we also need to keep coming up for air. And I think that's also really hard, and it's also a privilege to some extent to be able to find a way of coming up for air together. And also how critical questioning, difficult questions can come at us from all directions and different perspectives and experiences, and sometimes we're ready for them and sometimes we're not ready for critical questions. The conditions that make this possible, the conditions that make all of this work possible, are often really unequal. So the time, the trust, the pleasure, the joy, the silliness, the sharing, the responsibility, the pride, the satisfaction, the common drive. These are all incredibly unequal in themselves, and I think that's something the B-Part network is trying to grapple with as well, given that we are living, obviously, obvious statement, we're all living in extremely unequal societies, and trying to kind of crack open spaces to think differently and do different things together, and just how difficult that is in practice, given the inequity of resources. So how do we, I guess, those questions of how do we go from, we're talking in our evaluation research process of thinking together about the micro, the meso, the macro, and how these interrelate, how that kind of personal relationship relates to organizational structures, and then broader political and policy structures and how these always feed in and out, and they're always felt, no matter what the scale. So yeah, I think more chance to do this sort of thing is important, but also to have, like, we had closed meetings. We had a closed meeting this morning. That's also really important. But yeah, just to acknowledge the energy that it takes to do, even to put something like this on. So yeah, big thanks to all the technical stuff going on over there, and the translator, and the people who made these amazing little chairs, and yeah, and the kind of infrastructure, I suppose, that makes deep diving and coming up for air possible. I can't think what else to say, but maybe we need some questions and discussion.
I think we need to also thank those who are here. So it's a perfect moment also to respond to some of the questions that you even summarize and build up on. And I really like some of these. But I would like really to listen to you and to mobilize your own participation somehow. We have here other organizations that participate in the B part, but also co-creators that last year were, engaged in one of the great fieldwork we had. So, but also anyone who feels like something that sparkle or wants to respond or ask question, I think we can now take some time to open it up a little bit. So don't be shy. We're just online, but it's nothing. So it's very private. You want? Wow. Yes, please.
Like because. Okay. Wow.
The lantern.
Okay, I will try. It's working. Okay. Hello. Because all of you talk a lot about that taking responsibility, and that is a big word with these participatory projects. I have a question because I don't know exactly this project. How did you describe the project to the participants, and how you choose participants? Because did you call it as an art project or political project? Because outcome, the legacy, is starting to be really political, and it's like engaging the changes of the society after. And I think it's like it's fair to say it before, like on the beginning of the project, that you have like a bigger idea behind of you. I don't know, like, did you do that with your groups you were working with? And I know that it's hardly to plan before, like starting an art project, what you will get on after. But I'm like really curious about that. Troubles between the policy outcome and art outcome of projects, like how to plan it, how to not because sometimes like participatory projects are starting with that, okay, let's create art, let's have a fun, and after that people are just engaged in a really political project, and they're, oh no, I don't want to be like, I don't want to stay with that here, like I'm afraid of like going argue with my neighborhood, with the local spokesman or the government. Yeah, that open question for that, because like it all sounds incredible for us as an mainly, I think, art professionals, but what's with people? Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk about this particular project this spring, and I think with Alexandra, who was the first chosen one to the project, I basically how I ended up being her was that I was kind of searching for somebody who's active in their visual arts, so that they create like other things around the exhibition as well. So I was searching social media, and I was asking. Luckily, Finland or Helsinki is a quite small place, so I was asking around and asking for recommendations, and then yeah, I ended up with her, and then I gave the opportunity that I like. After that, I didn't anymore make any decisions on who came along, or there was no discussions about who then like entered to the project afterwards. So I didn't have the power anymore at that point. But then we did go through the idea that they get certain amount of money, they get the opportunity to make the decisions, and we will support if they need help. And maybe the one thing that I did find difficult, particularly in this project, was that they had really free hands on things. So they had their own budget, their own space, their own everything. But then, even though we were saying that, oh, if you need help, ask, but when is it so that if I realized that maybe young artists don't want to come to the institution to ask for help because they might feel that it's not so professional then, or that we might think that they don't know what they're doing, type of a thing. So this became this issue that I was thinking that when is it impolite to kind of push the help, and when is it okay to just wait that the question comes along, and in that way I also didn't have any idea what the outcome would be. So they had totally free hands to do whatever, and it kind of grew like baking, this thing. And we also spoke about this thing that if nothing happens, then nothing happens, then the gallery is empty, and we'll show that to the people. So there was no pressure in that way of that something must happen, or that if things don't end up being nothing, then they end up being nothing, and that's the outcome of the thing. And maybe we learn something else. And this is actually something we spoke this morning in our session as well, that what is the failure in these processes? Like when do you fail? Then if nothing comes out of it, or if people don't like it, or what's the failure in co-creative processes? Like, and I don't have an answer. And we were also thinking, and what I've been thinking lately is that whose opinion, or who am I afraid of for the failure? Like, is it myself or my own career, or what does it come down to? But we do depending of the project a little bit, like who's kind of running it, because usually it's one of the artists, and mostly they're young artists. So it doesn't create this situation that you have like a very established artist who is then integrating other people to their work, and they are creating art with this. So then we don't probably have this problematism of having an artist who has an idea, and then we collect people around that, and then people end up being part of something that they didn't know what they entered into.
But we did. So with Gucci Fabrica, Kotte had worked with the festival in her collective Mil M2, which people might know, Chilean collective. She had worked the year before with us. And for those who haven't had the pleasure of going to Latvia, it's not that she just managed to speak to everyone across language, across social comfortability, and it was so obvious that she could connect with, really, for me anyway, anyone in Latvia. And we did want to invite a foreign artist. So instantly, me and Kotte started talking about a potential project. And just because of the way things worked out, it was easier to recruit seamstresses as a job, to be a seamstress on a project for 10 days, because it was paid. So there was a slight, not trying to reveal too much before actually coming into the project. So there wasn't interviews or trying to figure out the right kind of formula of participant, or but just trusting in the artistic mythology of the work of Gucci Fabrica, that anyone could step into that. Anyone could step into that space. You didn't need to have the biggest personality or the sharpest wit, or you just had to be a very, very good seamstress. Like that was the mission. We wanted really amazing seamstresses. And the strength of the mythology and what then Kotte held meant that they were then given permission to escalate the project themselves, because they had trust in this mythology, and then knowing that they were, badass seamstresses, they could make anything, they could take the project anywhere with the skills that they already had. So we didn't tell them, they didn't get the full kind of, here is everything. The lead artist definitely did, but our participants didn't. That was slowly unveiled to them over the 10 days that they worked with us. So by the end, they had a pretty good understanding, but for them, it's also not so relevant, if I'm completely honest. They don't care that they're part of this European project. They just love being part of Gucci Fabrica and participating in the project that they're in. They're not, they like that they're part of it, but they're not so interested in the writing of evaluation or this European project. They love being a part of the project that they're a part of. So I think this is also an interesting tension to think about, also as curators and then as artists, then our co-curators. What interest do they have about this report that will be written? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to know something. I have taken part in a few projects, and sometimes artists aren't the best communicators. And very sorry. Don't you think that part of a project should be someone who represents the participants and can communicate well with the artist? Because sometimes it isn't always immediate.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. But I think that has to do a lot with the artist recruited, actually. And for me, I'm constantly thinking in terms of the artists that I'm recruiting to do this kind of work, and then thinking about the community. Well, you want to have artists who are willing to make that connection personally. Sometimes conduits, if it's around language, helps. Like if there is a language barrier, or but for me, personally as a curator, I like to keep that intimacy as close as possible, which then also usually means limiting the number of participants. Yeah, no. I just wanted to say that yes, the answer is yes.
I can continue to that this is kind of what we learned this spring, that I think with this Kairos collective, because it ended up being so many people with different personalities, and who they invited, they didn't know, everybody didn't know each other. So it wasn't like a group of friends. So then I definitely feel like that we should have had somebody in the place to be kind of the eyes and the ears, so that when things are like unclear, that they could explain things. And this is comes down to the time that we should value or make choices on how people, when they're on their hourly list of time, that's how do you divide that. And I think there's definitely a need in the working groups to have like a kind of a representative who knows what things are about, and who can help with practicalities and practical things, and also can kind of sense the air, like what's going on, and when, because I think a lot of misunderstandings can be avoided if there's somebody whose task is kind of to trying to figure out what's going on in the space where people are creating art and things.
Yeah, I think that what is really a slippery field is, and I connect your comment with the previous question, is to make sure we are not instrumentalizing people. And I think there is a basic rule, not even in artistic processes, but in human, let's say, relationship, which is the clarity in communication. And these kind of projects are complex and very multi-layered. It's like onions. So you have a constellation of people that partake, co-creators, artists, institution, organization, humans, a lot of different motivation and a lot of different visions that luckily encompass one another. So to be in a field work, to be within a wider process, a process that is embraced by organization. So it's many levels, and you can pick the one that is closest to you. The most important thing is that the big picture is clear for everyone. And then, of course, that the motivation is shared. Regarding also the political exposure, which is very sensitive, and partially is what Anna was also tackling before. So how not to be a danger for somebody else. I think we go back to this idea of care and how the organizational impact should change, learning from these processes. And you learn also by mistake. So also to understanding that sometimes institutions lack a presence that could be not just the mediator with the artist and the co-creators, but the person that actually welcome the legacy and can seed it for further steps. And these are exactly the points we are exploring by doing. So it's not yet, let's say, perfect, but it's a very crucial question. And I think it's one of the most, the drive, if not the common purpose. And again, sometimes in these very open processes, the motivation is shared at the beginning. More than a selection, we try to operate through invitation, but still it can change while you develop the process. So it's the maintenance of keep on sharing, being even redundant in the clarity. Sometimes even in other situation, I realize how many times I repeat the same question and I feel like my grandmother, but actually maybe it's necessary to make sure we share a trajectory and that things are on the floor, because we are so different that even something that is crystal clear can be read differently by different mindsets. So it's a hell of a job.
Maybe just another thing. I think as well, we need to maybe acknowledge elephant in the room situation of the framework I think we're in is an artist sort of centered, artist led commissioning type approach of understanding what culture is and what artists and art is, and there are some of us, like the people I guess here and on the panel, are dabbling and kind of experimenting with trying to question that artist centeredness of ways of working, and that might involve artists and other cultural workers giving up power, sharing power, really dismantling existing institutional structures and festival organizing approaches to think differently about who's doing the inviting. So I think we're still in the language of the invitation, setting up the power relation from the get-go. And I don't know how far, Be Part can get within the short period to really do that kind of shifting of power balances, or even if we all want to, or if we're all on the same page with that and what that might mean, at the same time acknowledging that there are job roles and skills that need resourcing. But we're all within, I think, the language and the histories of modernist versions of art still that dominate the way the event is set up, the way the festivals are set up. It's a long way to go, I think, even though people have been trying for decades to do some dismantling of those ideas.
Can I ask the audience a question? So for those who have been co-author or participant, and I know there are some of you who I've seen in other works, what is the hardest question you've had to ask? So going back to our initial questions of the hardest question we've been asked, what is the hardest question that you've had to ask, or the hardest situation that you've been within as a co-author or a non-lead artist or a participant? Is that a too hard question? It should be hard. That's the point. And then what is the best answer that you've heard?
But I think at any age, anyways, because this morning we talk about the failure and what can happen when you define a failure. So, and I think that that attitude of keeping it open, like in an experimenting way, it's one of the piece. Of course, to not reduce the attempt to pure exploration and entertainment, it's really relevant. So how we can think about pleasure in a way that it's really a radical eruption, and radical in the sense that we subvert some logic and not just playfulness for the sake of it. I think otherwise I feel too privileged to sit here and talk about this kind of state of things for just fun. So if you're really sure you don't have any boiling question or even response, and it's also a good spot to provoke, as I think it's a very good and unique opportunity also to say your own opinion on participation, because some people are very resisting and almost allergic to this practice, which I respect. So I'm not pushing any further questions from your side. And if you don't want to say more things, do you still have something you want to share? No. Oh,
No, maybe
Final
it's an
call for
invitation.
back.
No, maybe it's an invitation though, like also to follow the project. Like we're in this sticky space right now. It's like not quite formed, it's not quite finished. There are bits and pieces still happening, but we have another year and we will have a final symposium and presentation and festival centered around this project at Homonovus next year. So Homonovus September 23. So if this kind of stuff is the stuff that makes your heart sing, like put it in the diary, come to Riga, and there will be more sharings. There will be also this more like academic perspective also on the project. We'll have a publication, and then some of these works from around the network will be shared in one spot. So if this concept of participation, if it makes your heart sing, then put it in the diary. We'd love to have you in Riga.
Yeah, that's a good spot to just keep continuing the conversation in the future. And thank you for being with us this afternoon. And thank you for Ilaria and all the technical stuff and Santarcangelo Festival, and enjoy the rest of the festival.
Thank you, Chiara.
Tonight.